I watched the love of my life shatter before my eyes, the late-night whispers, the stolen glances. I dismissed them as shadows in my mind. But the moment I found that letter, everything fell apart. She wasn't just my wife. She was a stranger, living a double life I never saw coming. Now, as I stand here in the wreckage of our so-called love, I realize the truth. I was nothing more than a pawn in her twisted game. This isn't just my story, it's my reality, and the truth is far more twisted than I ever imagined. I was worn out. While I was traveling, I heard that my son had been hit by a car while he was riding his bike. Most of his injuries weren't too serious, but doctors were worried about his kidneys. I could have waited to get home, but I wanted to be there for him, and my boss was understanding about my situation. I had taken a flight all night to reach the hospital. I didn't really need to rush, but I felt like I had to. Even though the doctors assured me he would be okay, things can change quickly, and I wanted to be there. If he needed a kidney transplant, they would have to do tests soon to see who could help him. Packing my things, booking the flight, and dealing with the layover left me without sleep for almost 24 hours. I just can't seem to rest on planes or in airports. When I arrived at the hospital, Denise wasn't there. The nurse at the desk told me she had gone home to freshen up because I wasn't expected until later. I then realized I hadn't updated Denise on my travel plans. I had been so hurried that I completely forgot. I asked if there was a place I could rest for a bit since I didn't want to leave the hospital. They offered me an empty bed in Nate's room, saying Denise had used it the night before. I went inside, closed the privacy curtain, and fell asleep almost instantly. I woke up to voices outside my curtain. As I began to stir, I heard the door open and footsteps enter the room. It was my wife talking softly to Nate, who was still under sedation. "How's my boy today?" she said gently. "I'm so sorry for what you're going through, sweetheart." I then heard the sound of her pressing buttons on her phone and the pause as she waited for someone to answer. Still half asleep, I decided to stay quiet until she was done. "Hey, it's me," she said. "I haven't seen him, but he said he was coming straight home. I assume he's on his way." "I know, but he wants to be here just in case, and I can't really tell him not to help. Besides, he might be a match even if they're not actually related." What was she talking about? Of course, he's agreed to get tested if it's needed. He agreed to this responsibility when we chose him as the father, even if he wishes he didn't look so much like Henry right now. But Henry isn't foolish. If someone else is a match and he's not, he'll start to ask questions. Chose who to be the... Oh my gosh! And who was she talking to? You know Henry. He'll probably want a DNA test, and when he finds out about Nate, he'll have questions about Gracie and Danny, too. And we know how complicated that could be. Well, I'm not going to let Nate suffer just to keep the secret. We'll just have to handle this. I think I can help him understand. It was a good idea to have the entire family tested. This way, if there's no match, Henry won't get suspicious. Okay, I'll let you know if anything changes. Bye. She hung up and let out a big sigh. I was so angry I was shaking. I stood up and pulled back the privacy curtain harder than I meant to. A surprised Denise turned around and looked me in the eyes, and I could see the worry in hers. "My God, Henry, you scared me. What were you doing in there?" "I was resting." My tone was calm. "Oh, did you just wake up?" she asked with hope. "No, I've been awake for a few minutes. To answer your next question, yes, I heard everything you said." "Who is it?" Who, honey? Don't play dumb, Dee. Who is Nate's father?" "You're his father, honey." "You know what I mean? Who is it?" I can't tell you." "Can't or won't?" "Both, I guess. It was part of the plan. But please listen, baby. It's not what you think. And just what am I thinking? That I tricked you into raising someone else's children because I didn't want to have yours. Didn't you deceive me? Well, I guess technically. And didn't you hide the fact that the kids weren't mine? Yes, and haven't I been raising someone else's biological kids? With a heavy heart, she said, "Yes, Henry." So how exactly am I wrong in my thinking? Because I wanted to have yours, baby, but you couldn't give them to me. I know we were having issues, but that's no reason. "Henry, you can't have kids," she suddenly said. I felt like I had been hit in the chest. "No way. Who told you that? I asked, shocked. Your mother, Denise said very softly. What? I don't understand. Remember how, before Nate was born, I used to spend a couple mornings a week with your mom just talking over coffee? I mentioned that we were trying to have a baby and it wasn't working. That's when she told me you'd had some accidents while bike racing when you were younger. She said it made you unable to have children. She showed me some tests from when you were 16. Wow, she never told me that. She said she didn't want to worry you at the time. When she found out we were wanting kids, she felt bad about what happened, but believed telling you then wouldn't fix anything. So you both came up with this plan to have kids and say they were mine. We wanted to give you the family you wanted, and we thought this would be the way to do it. If Nate hadn't gotten hurt, you might never have known. Yeah, and that you got to be with someone else was just a bonus, right? Who was it? Please, I only did it so we could have kids. Oh, so you didn't enjoy it? Well, not really, but you know how I feel. Did either of you think I might prefer a faithful partner over having kids? But they're yours. You're the only dad they've ever known. Only because you and my mom twisted things around. But that's still the truth. Who is it, Denise? It's Gabe, isn't it? She paused, and I knew I was right. No, it's not. I can't tell you, I promised. But it's not Gabe. You made a promise to me first. Funny how you keep this one, but let that one go so easily. I turned away in anger and walked over to Nate's bed, giving him a kiss on the forehead. He was still my son, just like Gracie and Danny were mine too. I didn't plan to tell Denise that anytime soon. I walked firmly toward the door. Henry, where are you going? We need to talk. I turned to her, trying to hide my irritation. I'm going to find Gabe. Henry, no! It wasn't him. I already told you that. Then give me another name. I can't, but it wasn't Gabe. Please don't do anything hasty. Well, I guess Gabe's not going to escape this. Henry. That was all I heard as I closed the door behind me. I could feel my anger showing as people quickly moved aside when they saw me walking down the hallway. I didn't want to wait for the elevator, so I took the stairs, heading down 8 flights and outside fast. I couldn't believe that Denise and my mom would do this to me, and I was shocked by Gabe's role in it. We had always gotten along great. If I wanted to pretend the kids were mine, he was the one I would choose. It wasn't hard to figure it out. Our family often said how much we looked alike, and we were frequently mistaken for brothers instead of cousins. Thinking about his age, I realized he started seeing Denise not long after he turned 18. Gabe and his wife Chelsea lived about 2 hours away. That was just enough time for Denise to tell him and for him to get away. But I went anyway because the drive would give me time to think. I parked on the street and walked to the small house where Gabe and Chelsea lived with their kids. I stepped onto the porch and knocked on the door. Gabe, come out here! I heard the deadbolt unlock and the door open, but it was Chelsea who stood there. She looked at me with curiosity, waiting for me to explain. Hi, Chelsea. Is Gabe here? No, he left right after your wife called to let him know you were coming, and please keep your voice down. The kids are sleeping. Do you know when he'll be back? I'm afraid not. Can I wait on your porch? What for, Henry? Are you going to make a scene and get yourself into trouble? Is that what you want? I hadn't thought about it like that. Feeling frustrated and tired, I just sat on the bench on their porch, my hands covering my face. Chelsea sat down next to me. I'm sorry for what's going on, Henry. He didn't mean to hurt you. You're his favorite cousin and have always felt like a brother to him. As she spoke, I realized she knew about the situation, and I started to wonder who else in the family was aware of it. You knew. Gabe told me when we got serious. He didn't want any secrets between us. Except from me, it seems. Well, that was the plan, Henry. But it was meant to protect you, not to hurt you. I hope you can understand that. And who else knows about this? To my knowledge, it's just me, Gabe, Denise, and your mom, and now you. We sat in silence for a long moment. I realized there was no benefit to waiting around. Talking to Gabe wouldn't change what had happened. I wasn't ready to let him off the hook, but nothing could be settled tonight, especially since he wasn't here. I stood up to leave. Thanks for telling me, Chelsea. It helped. I guess I'll see you later. Bye, Henry. Slowly, I walked down the stairs to my car. I had no clear idea of what to do next, but staying married felt almost impossible. And what about my mom's role in all this? Just as I opened the car door, "Henry, can I tell Gabe it's okay to come home?" "Sure." I got into my car and started driving home. It would be close to midnight when I arrived, and I was sure to be tired. I had been fueled by adrenaline during my trip here, but that had faded. In hindsight, I probably should have stopped at a hotel, both to rest and think, but that thought hadn't crossed my mind. I remember very little about the drive back, but I was filled with frustration when I pulled up to my house and saw my mom's car in the driveway and the lights still on. I knew she had been helping by taking care of Gracie and Danny while Denise and I were at the hospital or working, but it reminded me of her involvement in everything, and my anger began to bubble up again. I sat in the car for a few minutes before finally going inside. Mom and Denise were in the living room talking, but they went quiet when I walked in. "Did you find Gabe?" Denise asked. "No, you'll be happy to know that your warning call worked." "He's not my partner, Henry. It was just a way to make things happen." "I hope you believe that. I really don't." "Henry," my mom said for the first time, "please try to understand what I mean. And why should I listen to my wife?" "Pimp?" she said, surprised. "Sure, you helped my wife make her choices. It was about grandchildren instead of money, but it still feels like you took charge of her decisions in a way I can't agree with. Now I'm tired, so I'm going to bed. Mom, you can sleep on the couch or in my bed. I'm heading to Nate's room." I ignored Denise's request to sleep in our bed. I just changed into something comfy and lay down. I felt upset, but I was too tired to stay awake, so I quickly fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to see both women sitting in the kitchen, clearly waiting for me. I poured a cup of coffee and could feel their eyes on me. Finally, Denise broke the silence. "We need to talk about this, Henry. I think we should have talked before this all happened. Please, honey. I can't change what's already done. We need to figure out how to move on." "Really? So I can make big decisions for our lives and then just say, it's in the past? That feels wrong to me." "That's not the same thing, and you know it." "Do I? It seems like you're using the same reasoning. Sure, I dealt with my husband's cousin, but it shouldn't matter because it's over now. How is it any different?" "Because I did it for you." "For me? Are you saying you made those choices for my good?" "No. I made those choices hoping to give you something you wanted. And you didn't want this, right? Mom, you didn't really care about having grandkids, did you?" "Henry," my mom spoke up for the first time today, "you know that's not true. I wanted grandchildren, and when I found out about your injury, I was heartbroken. I should have told you, but I hoped it wouldn't be a problem. And of course, Denise wanted to be a mother. One reason we did this is because she wanted to have that experience. I know you're not happy with our decision, but the results were good." "Good? My wife's choices are good?" "Okay, maybe not that part, but you can try to explain it however you want. You made a choice without talking to me. You did something that changed my life, and I didn't even have a say in it. Maybe I would have preferred a loyal partner. I would have been fine with adopting. But we'll never know because you decided without me. No more excuses." "Okay, honey, you're right. We thought we were doing the right thing, and we were mistaken. But think about where we are now. I love you, the kids love you, and I know you love them too, despite everything. Your feelings are hurt, but I believe you can still feel love. Let's accept our situation and find a way to make the best of it. First of all, I will never turn my back on the kids. But you just don't seem to understand. This isn't a small issue. You made a big choice without talking to me. You kept making decisions that changed everything. And then you didn't think I should know the truth. So yes, let's accept things as they are, and that means I'm unhappy with this situation. I get why you're so upset. Can we set this aside for now and focus on our son? Yes, our son. Okay, we can deal with everything else later once Nate is okay, but I can't say how I'll feel when I see Gabe. Just tell him to stay away from Nate's room." After getting ready, I drove to Denny's to grab breakfast before heading to the hospital. I also wanted to calm myself down before seeing Nate. He wouldn't heal well if I brought all this anger with me. When I got to the hospital, Nate was awake. We talked for a few minutes until he got tired and fell asleep again. I admired his courage. I'd had my own fears and worries through all this, and yesterday's news hadn't changed that. The next few days went by in a blur. I stayed in a hotel for a while to escape the pressure to talk. My boss was very understanding and allowed me to take time off. I was using sick and vacation days to keep some income, and luckily, I had saved up a good amount. During my time off, I consulted a lawyer. I learned that even though I wasn't Nate's biological father, I had the same rights and responsibilities as any dad during a divorce. I had worried about not having visitation rights if Denise and I separated, but now that worry was addressed. I wasn't planning to get a divorce right away because I was concerned about how it would affect Nate. Still, I had other legal options to think about. A few days later, while still at the hotel, I got a call from Chelsea. I had a feeling I knew what it was about. Yes, Chelsea. Henry, please. About the back child support? I know you're upset, but don't do this. What? He made choices that impacted my life and I should just forget it? He avoided me when I tried to talk to him. What more is there? This won't change anything, Henry. It won't change what happened, and we can't give you any money. We don't have it. They can always take it from his pay. Come on, Henry. You know we barely get by as it is. That money won't really help you, but it means everything to our kids. Even paying a lawyer could ruin us. I know you want to make Gabe pay, and you may want to blame me for not telling you. But my kids are innocent in this. Please don't hurt them just to hurt us. Her points were valid. Nothing could change what had already happened. I was in a good financial place, so any money I got from them felt more like a punishment than something I needed. That didn't seem fair, especially for the kids. At that moment, I realized my anger was only leading to choices that would hurt others instead of helping. The only one truly suffering was me. I put Chelsea on hold and called my lawyer. Doug, it's Henry Weston. Please drop the case against my cousin. I know you think it's right, but it's my choice. Just send me your bill. I ended the call and went back to Chelsea. It's done. Are you happy? Yes, Henry, thank you. It was the right decision. I hope you understand what this means for us. I think I do. I also know what it means for me. It's a big change. See you later, Chels. As I was about to hang up, I heard Chelsea asking what I meant, but I didn't feel like explaining. It seemed like no one cared about how I felt. Back at my hotel, I struggled with my emotions. I was really hurt by Denise's actions. As I thought about everything, I had a hard realization. I didn't actually have any children. My life felt like a lie. My once loyal wife wasn't. I had thought I was a father, but it was all based on untruths. The hardest truth was that my kids, including my sweet little Gracie, weren't biologically mine. I still loved them, and I knew that family is more than blood, but it felt different now. At that moment, something inside me broke. I stayed in the hotel for 5 days, doing nothing but visiting the convenience store for food. I lived on prepackaged sandwiches and frozen burritos, washed down with drinks. I didn't shave or shower. I got many text messages asking me to talk, but ignored all except one that said Nate's kidneys were functioning well and he wouldn't need a transplant. He was expected to recover and come home soon. That night I realized something not so nice. The smell was me. At 2:27 a.m., I got out of bed and took a long shower. Feeling refreshed afterward, I lay down for a few hours of sleep. When I woke up, I made up my mind. I had spent my adult life focusing on others, always feeling responsible for family, especially for Denise. But now, those responsibilities felt gone. She had made her choices, and it was time for me to make mine. In the morning, I called my boss to tell him I would be quitting once my leave was over. He tried to convince me to think of it as a short break, but I was unsure about coming back. My only duty was to the kids, but I didn't feel as committed to that anymore. Next, I headed to a motorcycle dealership. I had always wanted a motorcycle, but had put that aside for my family. No more. I had savings, so I decided to buy a motorcycle. A couple of years ago, I took a training course so I could ride my new motorcycle while I traveled for a bit. Part of me felt bad that there was enough money in the bank for Denise to manage for a long time, but I was relieved the kids would be okay. The engine rumbled as I rode slowly down the street. To keep my neighbors from recognizing me, I wore a helmet. When I arrived at the house, Denise burst out the door, clearly upset. The look on her face when I took off my helmet was unforgettable, but she quickly collected herself. "What is that?" she asked. "My new motorcycle," I replied. "Oh no, you need to return it. We can't keep that." "No. No. What do you mean no? We talked about this before and we agreed." "No, Denise. You decided everything and I went along. That stops now. You lost the right to tell me what to do when you made your choice. No matter what excuses you have, all you did was hurt me, and I'm not listening to you anymore. Henry, please. I'm done. I only came by to get a few things and say goodbye to the kids. I walked past her, going straight into what used to be our bedroom, and grabbed a few changes of clothes and my toothbrush. Even when people want to distance themselves from home, they still have to take care of themselves. You're really leaving, aren't you? Didn't I make that clear? What about your job? I quit. You quit? We have 3 kids. How will we live? Correction, you have 3 kids. I don't have any, and I won't be supporting you anymore. I guess you'll have to get a job now. I knew I was being tough. I had no plans to let the kids suffer. Denise, yes, but not the kids. I was enjoying her discomfort a little too much. Henry, how many times do I have to tell you that he is not my boyfriend? Until you no longer have 3 kids he fathered. I'm sorry, okay? I made a big mistake. But we have a good marriage otherwise. I love you. We have to work through this. Please don't break up the family. That made me really angry. Don't blame this on me, Denise. What did you think would happen when I found out? There are other ways to build a family. The only reason you did it your way was to hide the truth. This is on you, not me. Okay, it's all my fault, but please let me try to make things right. How do you fix something like this? I can't change the past. So tell me, what can you do? I don't know. I just know I don't want to lose you. I see now that I let my own needs affect my choices, but you have to believe it wasn't on purpose. The problem is, I don't know what to believe. You still made your choices and nothing can change that. So I'm leaving. Not forever, but for a while. I'll call the kids when I can. Just the kids? For now. I'm leaving enough money in the account so you'll be fine for a long time. Thank you. I walked to Nate's room. He was resting while Gracie and Danny played quietly. They had always gotten along well, and I was glad they would be there for each other. The talk went as expected, with tears everywhere. I told them I loved them and promised to visit as soon as I could. When I finished, I turned to leave, but Nate asked to speak with me alone. I quickly led the younger kids out of the room and sat on his bed. I know what's going on, Dad. What do you mean? I'm not stupid. I've been listening when everyone thinks I'm asleep. Cousin Gabe is my real dad, isn't he? You don't need to worry about those things right now. Dad, I deserve to know. You're right, you do. Yes, he is. I can't prove it with DNA, but that's what I've been told. And Gracie and Danny? That's what I understand. That's what I thought. It's not what you think. It seems like Mom and Cousin Gabe were close. Isn't that something you do with your partner? It's complicated, but yes, that's how it usually goes. Is that why you're leaving? Because we're not your kids anymore? He spoke calmly, showing maturity beyond his years. I was once again impressed by how well he understood such tough topics. Hey, you will always be my kids. I didn't spend all those sleepless nights and help you take your first steps just to lose you now. I'm leaving because I need to sort things out with your mom, and I can't do that while I'm here feeling so upset. I get it, but I still don't understand why Mom made those choices. We'll need to talk about that later. Right now, your mom and I have things to sort out, and that's private. Are you going to sort it out, Dad? That was the big question. I don't know, buddy, I really don't. Okay, Dad, just don't forget about us. Never. I got one last hug from Gracie and Danny before I stepped out the front door. Denise hugged me too, but unlike with the kids, I didn't hug her back. I was still so angry at what she had done that even a small gesture of affection felt unappealing. I also told her that Nate knew about his biological father and had figured it out on his own. The look on her face showed she was upset about that. With no clear destination in mind, I started heading toward California. I had been there a couple of times for work, but had never taken the time to enjoy it. This felt like a good chance to see the sights. I hadn't shaved before I left, thinking it would help me blend in with a casual look I associated with bikers, even though I didn't know much about it. But those images come from somewhere, right? With my messy hair and a bit of facial hair, I packed my jeans, a few t-shirts, socks, my sturdy work boots, and a leather jacket I had bought for a dance with Denise years ago. I wasn't sure I had the right look, but I thought I dressed the part. I stopped at a nearby sporting goods store to buy a tent. I wanted a way to sleep outside without paying for a hotel every night. I found a great option, a cot that came with a tent attached. It kept me off the ground and protected me from the weather. The drive from Texas to California took over 20 hours, and I made many stops in New Mexico and Arizona. When I finally reached my destination, I rode along the ocean roads and beaches, amazed by the beautiful views. It was a big change for a guy who grew up in Texas. I enjoyed the beaches at Laguna Beach and Corona del Mar, but found Long Beach to be a bit too fancy for me. I understood that the people there worked hard and deserved to enjoy life, but it just wasn't my style. Overall, I spent about 2 weeks soaking up the sun in Southern California. By the end, I realized it was nice to visit, but I didn't want to live there. So I set off for home again. I also discovered something interesting about how people see you. I was a manager at a big company, but once I got on a motorcycle and let my appearance go a bit, people started noticing me more when I walked into a restaurant. I didn't mind it at all. I got a similar reaction at bars I visited along the way. It felt different than being in a diner. Many people kept their distance at first, but once they saw I wasn't trouble, they seemed fascinated by the bad boy image. Often, when I stopped for a drink, a few people would come over to talk, but I politely turned down any offers. These bars were just regular places, but I felt like I came from a rougher background. I started to wonder how I would be treated in a real biker bar. I asked for advice at a local motorcycle repair shop, and they were very helpful. They pointed me to a place called the Dirty Dog, just a few minutes north, near the regional airport. Even though I was back in Texas and not far from home, I had never been to this area before. I drove there the first time during the day to find it. The bar was a standalone building in pretty good shape, even though the nearby abandoned buildings looked run down. I guessed the customers of the Dirty Dog had driven away the other businesses. After that, I went back to town and booked a hotel room. After a short rest, I thought about whether to take a shower. I imagined that bikers didn't shower often, but I wasn't really sure about that. Not wanting to make a bad impression on my first visit, I decided to take a shower. Day 1. Saturday, I drove into the parking lot and saw several motorcycles and a few trucks. Unsure of the rules, I parked off to the side and walked into the bar. Once inside, I noticed a few people looking my way, but no one paid me much attention. I went to the counter, ordered a beer, and tried to blend in. I chose a small table nearby, and as I looked around, I noticed a woman watching me. She appeared to be in her mid-30s with long, straight brown hair and dressed casually. I tried to act relaxed, just a guy enjoying his drink, and took in my surroundings. Every time I glanced at her, she was still looking. It made me a bit uneasy. I was the only person sitting alone in the bar and had no idea how to change that or join in. So I stayed quiet. After about 15 minutes, while the woman continued to watch me, she spoke to the guy sitting next to her. Then she stood up and walked over to me. She wore no makeup, but she didn't need any. She was naturally pretty, not a model, but nice to look at. She sat down across from me without saying anything and looked at me for about 30 seconds. "Are you an accountant?" she asked suddenly. "I'm sorry? Are you an accountant?" "No." Dentist?" "Nope, not a dentist," I replied, amused. "Why all the questions?" "Well, you don't seem like a biker, so I figured maybe you're having a midlife crisis and those guys are usually accountants or dentists or something like that." I wasn't amused anymore, but I don't think she noticed. "Didn't pass the test, huh?" "Not at all," she laughed. I stood up. "Thanks for the wake-up call," I said, heading for the door. She grabbed my arm and turned me back to her. "Hey, wait. I wasn't trying to chase you away." "No, just trying to make me feel awkward. Good job." I pulled away from her grasp and walked across the bar to the door. It didn't take very long, but it felt like it in that moment. I was sure everyone was watching me and silently laughing. At least it was quiet. I reached my bike, swung my leg over it, and just sat there for a moment. I had never felt so out of place. Just before I put my helmet on, I felt hands on my shoulders and sensed someone sitting behind me. I knew who it was. "What are you doing?" "Letting you take me for a ride." I turned around to look at her. She already had her long brown hair tied back with a navy blue bandana. "Helmet? You going to crash?" "Not planning to, but..." "Then let's go." "I don't want any trouble with your boyfriend." "No worries, I don't have one." "Oh, I thought the guy you were with..." "That's my brother." "That might be worse." "It'll be fine." "Let's go." I started the engine and she wrapped her arms around me. With no set place in mind, I just rode. Sometimes she pointed or shouted directions, and I followed along without caring much about where we were headed. We drove around for about 30 minutes before she began to give clearer instructions. Eventually, we stopped in front of a small, well-kept house in a quiet neighborhood. "Who lives here?" I asked. She looked at me as if I was clueless, and I realized it was a silly question. "I do. Come on in." We entered the house, and she offered me a drink. I chose water. She handed me a glass, and we sat down on the couch. "Aren't you nervous inviting a guy you just met into your home?" I asked. "No offense, but I know how to take care of myself," she replied with a smile, and I believed her. "What's your name?" "Henry. And you?" "Melody, but everyone calls me Mel." "Okay, Melody." She smiled again. "So why are we here?" "To talk. It seems I struck a nerve, and I don't think you're going through a typical crisis. I thought we could discuss it." I felt like I needed to share what was on my mind. Maybe talking about it would help me understand better. So I told Melody everything as she listened closely. "Do you think it was all about wanting to have kids?" she asked. "I think so. I've been upset and reacting strongly, but I don't believe they were ever true partners. That doesn't change how I feel about being misled." "I understand. I'm just trying to figure out the real issue. Do you think you'll be able to forgive her?" Part of me wants to return to how things were. We were happy until Nate got hurt. Even then, we came together as a family. But now I can't ignore what happened, and it's affecting how I see everything she does. When I think about my kids, I remember what she did. "Did you notice you referred to them as my kids?" "Of course they are, Melody. What happened doesn't change that. I've been present in their lives every single day and will always be there. This is about her, not them." We spoke a little longer, but it felt like we were just going in circles, and I grew tired of the conversation. It was getting late, so I prepared to leave, thanking Melody for her kindness and for listening. "It's pretty late, Henry. Are you sure you're not too tired to ride?" "I am a bit tired, but I think I'll manage." "It's not far. Why not just stay here?" "Thanks for the offer, but I don't think the couch will be big enough for me." The house had 2 bedrooms, but the second one was turned into an office and had exercise gear that looked like it had seen a lot of use. "That's not quite what I meant," she said with a smile. "Listen, Melody. Henry, don't misunderstand. I haven't had someone to talk to in a while. Even when I was with others, I didn't really enjoy it." "Then why did you do it the first time?" I asked, smiling. "Hey, I have my needs, just like anyone else, so I do what I have to do," she laughed. "So what do you think? I'll even be dressed." "You don't usually?" "Nope." I thought about that for a moment, and Melody knew what I was considering. "Stop imagining things. Are you staying or not?" I decided to stay, so I went outside to grab a pair of running shorts and a clean t-shirt. When I got back inside, the shower was running, and I needed to focus on something else to keep my mind busy. It was too late to call the kids, so I sat down and looked at the news on my phone until I heard the bathroom door open. Melody came out in a simple black t-shirt and shorts. "Fully dressed, just like I said. Now it's your turn." I hopped into the shower and quickly washed up. I dressed and walked out of the bathroom to find Melody sitting on the bed reading. I climbed in next to her, feeling a bit nervous. This was the first time I had shared a bed with someone other than my wife in years. She smiled, knowing how I felt. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm fine. You know, we've talked so much about me that I never asked about you. What do you do?" "I'm a nurse." "Really?" "Yep, I work at Scott & White across town. I'm off tomorrow, but back to work on Monday." "That's amazing. Do you enjoy it?" "I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. Plus, nurses can always find work anywhere they go." She leaned over and gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek. I closed my eyes and quickly fell asleep, even while Melody was still reading. I guess I was more tired than I realized. Day 2. Sunday, I woke up on my stomach with Melody's arm across my back and her leg resting comfortably on me. She was still asleep and I didn't want to move, so I tried to stay still. Just when I couldn't hold it any longer, I felt her stir, and as she stretched, I slipped out of bed and dashed to the bathroom. "Are you taking me out for breakfast this morning?" she asked. "You bet." She got out of bed, lifting her shirt over her head. "Not wearing anything underneath?" I asked. "Sorry, I didn't think about that." "I haven't worn a bra outside of work for 15 years, and I'm not going to start now." "Why not?" "I just don't like them and don't think I need one. Plus, I'm a biker girl and it makes it hard to show off my tattoos. You've done that? I asked. Hundreds of times, usually with my friends and my brother's wife. Honestly, it makes me feel free, she said with a quick smile. We got dressed and I struggled to button my pants because I was distracted. We rode the Harley to a diner in town. It was the kind of place where the food was good, with big portions and fair prices. But if you ate there every day, you'd probably gain weight. We spent the day riding. I made her wear a helmet this time because I didn't feel safe enough without it. Most of the time, I just turned wherever I felt like. But occasionally, Melody would point me in a specific direction, just like she had done the night before. We stopped for lunch at a deli. She ordered a roast beef sandwich, and I got a Reuben. I liked that she ate real food. She shared stories about her childhood in a lively community. She was 37 and had never been married. She had loved a couple of times, but it just hadn't worked out. Her parents were bikers, too, and had passed away about 10 years ago in an accident. Her brother was her only family now, but the money from their loss had helped her buy a home. We spent the afternoon riding, stopping a few times for ice cream or just to take a break. I felt comfortable with Melody. She was fun and easy to talk to, and we even exchanged a few sweet kisses. After dinner at a local steakhouse, we headed back to her place to change because we planned to go to the Dirty Dog again. Melody said she and her friends went there about 6 nights a week, and tonight would be no different. I was the first to take a shower. Once we arrived at the bar, as soon as we walked in, Melody's brother Paul noticed us and walked over. I felt nervous as I braced for a confrontation. "You were with my sister last night?" he asked, getting close to me. No, we just talked. That's all, I promise." I spoke quickly, hoping to avoid any trouble. He stared at me for a moment, and I felt smaller in his presence. Then suddenly he broke into a big grin and patted my shoulder. "Too bad. I hear she's a great friend." He and his friends laughed, and I let out a breath of relief. "Come on, city boy. We have the first game at the table tonight. Duke, get a drink for my friend here. It's on me." The group was still sharing laughs as they moved to the pool table on the side of the room. I took a moment to catch my breath and calm my shaking body. Melody joined me, standing close and taking my hands in hers. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'll be fine. Did you know he would do that?" I didn't know exactly, but Paul loves to joke around, so I figured he'd do something funny. "I'm really sorry," she said, trying to hold back her laughter. I smiled and shook my head, then took her hand and walked over to join the others at the pool table. Day 3, Monday. Once again, we woke up together in the same bed. This time, I was cuddled up with my arm around Melody's waist, my hand resting gently on her stomach, separated only by her nightshirt. I carefully got out of bed and went to the bathroom, then returned to find Melody wide awake, waiting for me. "I was using that," she said with a grin. "Using?" I replied, a bit confused. "Your body heat, of course," she teased. "What time do you work today?" 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. That sounds like a long day, 60 hours a week. True, but we have 2 breaks each day, so it's still 50 hours. The pay is good, and I get evenings and weekends off now. Seniority has its perks. So, you don't have to work on weekends or evenings? I occasionally take extra shifts as a favor, but my regular schedule is weekdays. What do you plan to do today? I'll just think for a while, I guess. Will you still be here when I get home? Here or at the dog? I promise I won't leave without telling you. Melody, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. Thank you." She hugged me and then went to take a shower to get ready for work. I moved to the kitchen and quickly made some fried eggs and toast for breakfast, packing a cup of coffee for her to take with her. "I've never had someone to take care of me before. I like it," she said with a smile. We talked about little things as we ate, and then she left for work after giving me a quick peck on the cheek. I got comfortable in her bed for a moment, savoring her comforting scent. After taking a nice shower myself, I decided to go for a ride. I had a hard time thinking clearly when I was with Melody, or even when I was in her house. She had captured my heart in a short amount of time, and it was distracting. I tried to focus, but my thoughts kept drifting back to her. I even found myself outside the hospital where she worked, staring at the building and wondering where she was and what she was up to. I knew it felt a bit childish, but the butterflies in my stomach reminded me of having a crush when I was younger. Realizing I needed to clear my head, I decided to just enjoy the ride. I passed by a few things I thought the kids would enjoy and stopped to take some pictures with my phone. It was interesting how much I thought about the kids and how much I missed them, while Denise barely crossed my mind and only made me feel frustrated. Maybe it was just too early, but I wasn't sure. I arrived back at Melody's house about 15 minutes before she did, giving me just enough time to take a shower and get ready. When she came home, she took a quick shower too, and then we headed to the dog. As we walked in, Paul greeted us warmly. He looked us both in the eyes for a few seconds before saying hello. It wasn't long before I picked up a pool cue and started playing 8-ball against one of the guys. I hadn't played pool since college, and even then, it was pretty rare. About an hour later, a striking woman entered the room. Her skin had a beautiful tan, and she walked confidently. Everyone welcomed her with smiles, and I soon learned her name was Rhonda. She returned their greetings and then walked towards the pool table, right over to me. "So you're the guy I've been hearing about," she said with a playful smile. Before I could reply, she quickly tugged at both sides of my head in a surprising way. I was caught off guard but didn't want to make a fuss. Just then, I spotted Melody out of the corner of my eye. With a smile, I turned to look at her, hoping she would find the moment funny instead of annoying. To my relief, she was smiling back. "I'm sorry about that," I said, feeling a bit awkward. "Sorry for what? That's just Rhonda being herself," she replied with a laugh. "Is that your sister-in-law?" I asked, glancing back at Paul, who was chatting with Rhonda. "Yep, Paul's wife. And I hope you liked her little welcome because she's quite the character, but she's loyal to my brother." "And your brother is okay with that?" "I think he loves it." "Really? He enjoys watching her get a reaction from guys, knowing she's all his." Suddenly a thought struck me. "Wait, you said she likes to show off, and that you do too. Is that true?" "Sometimes, but it's not as easy for her as you'd think. I can only imagine the reactions she gets." "Stick around long enough and you might see for yourself." "Maybe, but there's only one person here I really want to focus on." "Whoa, where did that come from?" I couldn't believe I actually said that out loud. But then I glanced at Melody, and she was smiling, so I guess it was a good thing to say. The rest of the night was just the four of us. Me, Melody, Paul, and Rhonda. Paul and Rhonda spent most of their time being sweet with each other. I had a feeling Paul was having a fantastic night. Melody, on the other hand, was very respectful of my marriage. We shared a few kisses, hugged sometimes, and held hands, but that was all. By the time we got back to Melody's house that night, after all the exciting moments between her and seeing Rhonda with Paul, I was feeling a bit restless. Being polite, I suggested that Melody use the shower first, hoping to step outside for a bit. She thanked me and went into the bathroom. As soon as the door closed, I stepped out the back door and took a moment to breathe on the little wooden deck at the back of the house. It felt good to relax a little. Once I calmed down, I went back to Melody's bedroom. I could hear her in the shower. She seemed quite comfortable in there, a bit louder than I expected. I closed my eyes and imagined her enjoying her time. I was caught off guard by my own reaction to the sounds coming from the bathroom. When I realized I had to clean up a little, I quickly pulled up my shorts and rushed to the kitchen to grab a damp dishcloth. I started cleaning the spot, and of course I was kneeling when the door opened. I looked up to see Melody standing there. "What are you doing?" she asked. I jumped up quickly, feeling embarrassed. I thought I saw something on the door and was wiping it off." "What was it?" Just a shadow or something, I think. I may have imagined it. For some reason, I felt like she didn't believe me. "Were you outside the door for long?" No, just a minute or two. I was out on the deck earlier." Again, I felt like she didn't believe me. She looked at me as if she thought I had been outside the door listening to her. If she did think that, she didn't say anything. "I noticed on the ride home what a pretty night it is. Ready for your turn in the shower?" she asked. I nodded and stepped inside, relieved that the conversation was over. I told myself that even if she wondered, she couldn't prove anything. With my mind clearer, my shower was quick. I pulled on my shorts and climbed into bed next to Melody, who was reading. I turned to face her, and she immediately put her book down and turned off her lamp. In the past, we had usually fallen asleep on different sides of the bed but ended up together by morning. Tonight, Melody snuggled against me with her back to me. I didn't move away. Day 4. Tuesday. Strangely, we woke up the next morning in the opposite positions. I had turned to my right side and was facing away from her. Melody was also on her right side, with her arm draped over my torso and her leg across mine. I was glad the morning felt comfortable and easy. Today was quite like yesterday, except for one important detail that I'll explain later. Melody went to work as planned, and I took my bike out to ride again. I had stopped overthinking everything and was just enjoying a break from adult responsibilities. I wasn't worried about the kids. Denise was a great mother, no matter what else she was. My main worry was how much I was starting to like this new way of living. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. While some might disagree, I still had kids and planned to be there for them. That part felt easy. But Denise? She was tricky, and I couldn't come up with a good reason for staying with her. Her choices hurt me deeply, and I felt like I didn't really know her at all. How had I fallen for someone like that? It confused me. I was clean and refreshed when Melody came home from work. She quickly showered too, and we headed to the Dirty Dog again. Everyone was there, and we quickly found Paul and Rhonda. Paul greeted us as soon as we walked in, and the night went on from there. I didn't think Rhonda was particularly attractive, but she had a strong sense of confidence that was hard to overlook. Even though she stood out, I usually preferred someone more like Melody. That night, I was feeling the weight of the day and battling my thoughts. I noticed something had changed since the day before. At first, I thought it was nice of Rhonda to let me shower first, but I later realized there was more to that moment. As I stood under the warm shower, the day's activities reminded me of my happy times with Melody, and I began to think about those memories. Soon enough, I noticed Melody had joined me in the shower. We smiled at each other, and I felt a mix of surprise and comfort with her there. She told me to relax and enjoy the moment. The connection we had felt strong, adding something special to the experience. I found myself thinking about our time together, feeling grateful for it all. Once we were done, I leaned against the shower wall, lost in thought. It was a more meaningful moment than I had expected. After showering, I could barely look at Melody as I got into bed. She smiled sweetly and went to take her own shower. As I lay there, I replayed our time together in my mind, wondering what it meant for us both. My feelings for Melody were getting complicated, especially considering my situation at home. Once again, I decided not to overthink things. I settled in, closed my eyes, and soon fell asleep. Day 5. Wednesday, I woke up early and made breakfast, just as Melody came out of the bedroom, drawn by the delicious smells filling the air. "The smells woke me up. You can't expect me to sleep while coffee and bacon are cooking," she said with a smile. I set a plate in front of her and sat down at the table, appreciating her natural beauty. She usually wore very little makeup, and I liked how natural she looked. After she finished her breakfast, she noticed I was quiet. "Are you okay? You're quiet this morning?" she asked. "I'm fine. Just admiring the woman in front of me," I replied, and that made her smile. When she was done, I cleaned up while she got ready for work. With a fresh cup of coffee in hand, I stepped outside to enjoy the lovely view. Soon, Melody came out, freshly showered and dressed for her day. "You'll be here when I get home, right?" she asked, needing some reassurance. "I promised I wouldn't just leave. That promise still stands," I said, and she nodded, feeling better. She went back inside, and I spent the morning on the deck, reflecting and sipping my coffee. Around noon, I made myself some lunch and then lay down in Melody's bed. Her scent filled the room, and I breathed it in deeply, thinking about what I would do next. I didn't even realize I was tired, but I must have dozed off. I woke up to a text from Melody. She asked me to pick up some steaks for dinner since she wanted to stay in tonight and cook outside. I agreed and went to get my bike. This was a small town, the only one of any size in the whole county, which helped the medical center where Melody worked. I was surprised when I walked into Save Max and saw Rhonda at the bakery counter. She looked up and smiled as I approached. "Hey there," she said warmly. "Restocking Mel's kitchen?" "No, just getting some things for dinner. She wants to stay in tonight." "Ah, a cozy night at home," she replied with a knowing glance. "It's not like that, Rhonda." "Maybe not to you," she said almost to herself. "What was that?" "Nothing. Ignore me, Henry. Here, this French bread just came out of the oven, hot and fresh. Have a good evening." I thanked her for the bread and continued shopping. I also picked up some breakfast foods we needed. By the time Melody came home, I had the steaks tenderized and marinating, ready to go on the grill. I had also prepared some veggie skewers and a pot of baked beans. I told her to take her shower and dinner would be ready soon. She wrapped her arms around me for a quick hug, kissed my cheek, and went into the bedroom. When she joined me on the deck, she had put on a nightshirt and pajama bottoms to keep warm. She hugged me tightly, and I enjoyed the moment. We shared a comfortable silence while the food cooked, and I plated it for us. The evening was lovely, and the weather was perfect for dinner outside. After dinner, we enjoyed some gelato I had picked up for dessert while watching a movie on TV. When the movie ended, I noticed that Melody had fallen asleep. I gently nudged her awake, and we walked slowly to the bedroom. She leaned against me as we walked. I didn't turn on the lights, but guided her to her side of the bed and then walked over to mine. We both settled into bed quietly. She encouraged me with soft whispers. We were in the moment when she suggested a change. "Can you help me sit up?" It was interesting to see her taking charge while also putting herself in a more relaxed position. I adjusted her, and we continued to connect, fully focused on each other. "Move your hand a bit." I paused for a moment, adjusting our rhythm as we stayed close. Her excitement was clear, and soon we both felt a wave of relief. Afterward, I joined her on the bed, covering us with a sheet. Before long, we both drifted off to sleep. Day 6, Thursday. I woke up to her alarm and saw that Melody was still asleep. I turned it off and gently shook her awake. She cuddled closer to me and whispered, "Thank you for last night." "I should be thanking you. It was wonderful." We shared a warm moment before we separated so she could get ready for work. The previous night had been amazing, but it made it harder to think about my living situation clearly. I didn't regret what happened, but I wanted to take a step back. I felt my time here might end soon, so I spent the day cleaning up Melody's house. I didn't pack my things yet, but organized them for when that time came. Melody returned from work right on time and thanked me for tidying up. If she sensed any deeper meaning, she didn't mention it. She took a shower and dressed in her biker chick outfit. For the first time, she did this in front of me, and I took a moment to appreciate the moment. She smiled when she caught me looking. We rode to the bar, and Paul greeted us at the door. Just as I began to wonder what he thought, he made it clear. "So, was I right?" "Right about what?" I asked. "You know what I mean. Did I hear right?" Now I understood what he was talking about. Somehow, he knew about last night. I looked to Melody for guidance, but she shrugged, signaling that it was fine. Paul was waiting for an answer, so I looked him in the eye. "Yes, Paul, you heard right." Everyone in the bar burst into laughter, and Paul smiled. He clearly wanted to make a clever comment, and once it quieted down, he did. "Of course she is. It runs in the family." Laughter filled the bar again, and I caught a quick glance at Melody, who was blushing slightly. It was surprising to see her looking shy, especially given what was happening. Melody and I joined Paul and Rhonda at their table and chatted for about an hour before Rhonda took Melody aside. "Hey, the dartboard is free. Let's play a couple of games." That left Paul and me alone at the table. I noticed the quick look he gave Rhonda. This was clearly not a random game. "What did you want to talk about, Paul?" "You caught that, did you?" "Yep. What's going on?" "She's really into you. You know that, right?" "I had a feeling. And honestly, I think she feels the same way." "Any idea what you're going to do?" "I can't think straight when I'm with her. Eventually, I need to get back on my journey and decide what to do. If it doesn't work out, I can't let my mind go there, Paul. If I start worrying about what I'll do if things don't work with Denise, I won't be able to handle it. I need to focus on what's happening now." "I don't envy that choice. I can't imagine what I'd do if Rhonda put me in that situation." "You're lucky, Paul." "I know. I hope things work out for you no matter what you choose." By the time Rhonda and Melody came back, our talk had moved to lighter topics. The ladies settled down next to us, and Melody gave me a nice smile that made my heart race. How could I turn away from this woman? The evening was fun, and I even managed to beat Paul in a game of pool for the first time, though I had a feeling he played easy on me. When Rhonda hugged me goodbye, it felt a bit longer than usual. The ride home to Melody's house was quiet. She seemed deep in thought and went straight for the shower. I started a load of laundry and went back into the bedroom as Melody came out, already changed for bed. "Your turn," she said softly as she climbed into bed. After a refreshing shower, I couldn't shake the feeling that Melody was pulling away, probably thinking about my leave soon. She seemed fine at the start of the night, so I wondered if she and Rhonda talked while Paul and I were chatting, even though Rhonda didn't know my plans. Maybe Rhonda just advised her to get ready. I put on my boxers and shorts and climbed into bed next to Melody. She put her book down right away and snuggled up to me, resting her head on my chest. "When are you leaving?" "I didn't set a time. But it's soon, right? If I don't leave soon, I might never go, and I can't do that right now." "I understand, and I wouldn't want you to. You handle your responsibilities, and that's one of the things I admire most about you." We lay there quietly, enjoying the moment. In my mind, I tried to figure out the best time to go, but I knew there wasn't really a right moment. After a couple of minutes, Melody spoke again. "I think you should leave tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "While I'm at work. I don't think I can bear to see you leave, so just go." "I don't have to leave right away." "Yes, you do. The longer you stay, the harder it will be. Please, just hold me closely tonight." Without saying a word, I pulled her in for a sweet moment. We spent the next few hours enjoying each other's company. After a peaceful night, we woke up, and Melody had to get ready for work. The shower was a bit small for both of us, so we took turns and then enjoyed some more time together before she had to go. She got dressed for work, and since she didn't want me to leave at the same time, I stayed behind, waiting for her to head out. I walked her to the front door. Before she left, she wrapped her arms around me. "Don't forget me, Henry. Melody, I promise I will never forget you." I watched her walk away and get into her car, feeling like I was about to start an important journey. I packed my bags and attached my tent to the back of my bike, deciding to go east. I wasn't going home yet, even though I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Because of my sentimental side, I drove by Melody's hospital before leaving town, hoping to catch a last glimpse of her, but she wasn't there. 5 days later, I reached Panama City, Florida, taking my time to enjoy the sights on the way. I spent a day watching the Mississippi River and found some peace in doing that. I was still calling the kids 4-5 times a week and having short talks with Denise, but those chats didn't feel meaningful. The beautiful white sand beaches of Panama City Beach were amazing, but my mind was elsewhere. I tried to focus on Denise, struggling with the truth of our situation. I thought there was nothing serious between Denise and Gabe, but the bigger issue was about trust. A marriage should be a partnership, and we should face problems together. However, when a real issue came up, she chose to deal with it without telling me. If Nate hadn't gotten hurt, I might never have discovered what was really happening. In the end, I realized I couldn't go back to Denise. She made a choice about our life together without involving me, and I had the right to be part of decisions that affected our future. I would always wonder what else she was hiding from me, and honestly, I was already worried about any other big choices she might have made without me. It took about 2 weeks for me to return to the home that Denise and I had shared. I could have gotten home quicker, but I wanted to take some extra time before jumping back into real life. I didn't want to surprise Denise, so I sent her a text to let her know when I'd be home. It ended up being Saturday afternoon. I hoped to see the kids when I pulled into the driveway, but instead, I saw Denise come out of the front door. "Where are the kids?" I asked. "They're at your mom's." "I thought we should talk first," she replied. I tried not to show how disappointed I was. "Okay, let's go inside." The house looked pretty much the same as I remembered. I hadn't been gone long, so everything was familiar. We sat together on the couch. "How's Nate doing?" I asked. "He's doing really well. I know he's told you on the phone, but it's true. He looks healthy, and he has his energy back. I think we're past the worst of it." There was a short pause before she continued. "You're planning to leave me, aren't you?" "Why do you think that?" I asked, surprised. "You're not acting like someone who just came back to their spouse after 2 months. I thought you'd want to start fresh when you came home." "I tried, Denise, I really did. I wanted to focus on our wonderful kids and leave the past behind. But I can't forget what you and my mom did. You kept a serious health issue from me. I know. I hoped you wouldn't find out. When Nate got hurt, I wanted you to understand my feelings. We're supposed to face these challenges together, not find our own way without our partner." As those words lingered in the air, I felt the weight of their truth pressing down on me. The room seemed to grow smaller, as if the walls were closing in, suffocating me with the reality of our situation. I looked into Denise's eyes, searching for any sign of the woman I had once loved so deeply, the woman who had been my partner through thick and thin. But all I saw was a stranger, someone who had made choices without me, choices that had altered the course of our lives forever. Denise shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her gaze dropping to the floor as if she couldn't bear the intensity of my stare. "I know we were supposed to be a team," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "But I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you, how to face you with the truth." I sighed, the anger that had been simmering inside me beginning to cool, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. "Denise, we've always been able to talk to each other. Even when things were tough, we found a way to work through it together. But this is different. You kept something so important from me. You made a decision that affected our entire family, and you did it alone." Tears welled up in Denise's eyes as she finally looked up at me. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I was doing what was best for us, for our family. I thought if I could just give you the children you wanted, everything would be okay." "But it wasn't okay," I said, my voice heavy with disappointment. "It wasn't okay because it wasn't the truth. Our relationship was built on trust, Denise, and now that trust is broken. I don't know how we can come back from this." Denise's tears began to fall freely, her hands trembling as she reached out to me. "Please, give me a chance to make this right. I know I made a mistake, but I love you. I love our family. Can't we find a way to move forward together?" I wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to the hope that we could somehow salvage our marriage, but the pain of her betrayal was too deep, too raw. I needed time to think, to process everything that had happened. "I don't know," I said softly, pulling away from her grasp. "I need some space, some time to figure out how I feel. I think it would be best if we take a break, give ourselves some distance to clear our heads." Denise's face crumpled with despair, but she nodded, understanding that this was something I needed. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'll give you the time you need. Just, please don't give up on us." With a heavy heart, I stood up and walked out of the room, leaving Denise alone with her tears. I needed to get away, to find some clarity in the midst of the chaos that had become my life. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. I felt lost, adrift in a sea of confusion and hurt. The woman I had loved for so long had betrayed me in a way I never could have imagined, and now I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. I found myself driving aimlessly, the darkened streets offering no solace, only a reminder of how empty my life felt at that moment. I passed by familiar landmarks, places that once held happy memories but now seemed tainted by the shadow of Denise's deception. Eventually, I ended up at the edge of town, near the old park where Denise and I used to take the kids when they were younger. The swings creaked softly in the breeze, and the playground was deserted, the echoes of children's laughter long gone. I parked the car and got out, walking slowly toward the swings. I sat down on one of the swings, the chains squeaking as I gently rocked back and forth. The silence of the night surrounded me, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the trees. Here, in this quiet, lonely place, I allowed myself to finally feel the full weight of my emotions. Anger, sadness, betrayal, all of it washed over me in waves, and I felt tears sting my eyes. I had always prided myself on being strong, on keeping it together for the sake of my family. But now, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was falling apart. I thought about the years I had spent with Denise, the life we had built together. I remembered the good times, the laughter, the love we had shared. But those memories were now clouded by the knowledge that Denise had kept something so important from me. The woman I had trusted with my heart had lied to me, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive her for that. As I sat there, lost in thought, my mind began to wander back to the early days of our relationship. I remembered how we had met, the way we had fallen in love so quickly, how everything had seemed so perfect back then. We had been inseparable, partners in every sense of the word. We had shared our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. And now, it felt like all of that had been shattered. I didn't know how long I sat there, lost in the past, But eventually, I realized that I couldn't stay in this place forever. I had to find a way to move forward, to figure out what came next. But the path ahead seemed so uncertain, so full of doubt. I stood up from the swing and began to walk, my footsteps crunching softly on the gravel path that wound through the park. The night was cool, and the stars were hidden behind a blanket of clouds. I felt a chill in the air, but it wasn't just the cold that made me shiver. It was the uncertainty of my future, the fear of what lay ahead. As I walked, I found myself thinking about my children. Nate, Gracie, Danny. They were the one constant in my life, the one thing that still made sense. I loved them more than anything, and I knew that whatever happened between me and Denise, I had to be there for them. They were innocent in all of this, and they deserved a father who would protect and support them no matter what. But the thought of raising them in a broken home, of having to explain to them why their parents were no longer together, filled me with dread. I didn't want to put them through that pain, didn't want them to suffer because of the choices Denise and I had made. But I also knew that staying in a marriage built on lies wasn't the answer. It would only lead to more hurt, more resentment. As I continued to walk, I began to formulate a plan. I knew that I needed to take some time for myself, to clear my head and figure out what I really wanted. I decided that I would take a leave of absence from work, maybe go on a trip, get away from everything for a while. I needed space, both physically and emotionally, to sort through my feelings and come to terms with what had happened. I also knew that I needed to talk to Denise, to have an honest conversation about our future. We couldn't keep avoiding the issue, couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. We needed to confront the reality of our situation, no matter how painful it might be. With a heavy heart, I made my way back to the car. As I drove home, I felt a sense of determination settle over me. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I had to take control of my life to make decisions that were best for me and my children. When I arrived home, the house was quiet and Denise was already in bed. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom for a moment, watching her as she slept. She looked so peaceful, so innocent, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of guilt for what I was about to do, but I pushed those feelings aside, knowing that I had to be strong. The next morning I woke up early before the sun had even risen. I packed a small bag with a few essentials and wrote a note for Denise, explaining that I needed some time away to think. I didn't go into detail, didn't want to start a fight or cause more pain. I simply told her that I loved her, but that I needed to figure out what was best for us and our family. I left the note on the kitchen table and quietly slipped out of the house, not wanting to wake anyone. As I drove away, I felt a mix of emotions, sadness, fear, uncertainty, but also a glimmer of hope. I didn't know where I was going or what I would find when I got there, but I knew that I needed this time, needed to find clarity and peace. I drove for hours, the miles slipping away beneath the tires as I headed toward the coast. I had always loved the ocean, found comfort in the sound of the waves, the vastness of the sea. It seemed like the perfect place to clear my mind, to find some perspective on the situation. When I finally arrived at the beach, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light over the water. I parked the car and walked down to the shore, the sand cool beneath my feet. I stood there for a long time, just watching the waves roll in and out, feeling the gentle breeze on my face. As I stood there, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The ocean had always had that effect on me, soothing my troubled mind and helping me find clarity. I knew that I couldn't stay here forever, that eventually I would have to return home and face the reality of my life. But for now, I allowed myself to just be, to let go of all the worries and fears that had been weighing me down. I spent the next few days in a small beachfront cabin I had rented, taking long walks along the shore, reading and reflecting on my life. I thought about my marriage, about the choices Denise and I had made, about the future we had once envisioned together. And I thought about my children, about the kind of father I wanted to be, the example I wanted to set for them. As the days passed, I began to feel a sense of clarity emerging. I realized that I couldn't go back to the way things were, that the trust between me and Denise had been irrevocably damaged. But I also realized that I didn't want to throw away everything we had built together. We had shared so many good years, had created a beautiful family, and I didn't want to lose that. I knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that there would be challenges and heartache. But I also knew that I was strong enough to face it, that I could find a way to move forward, to create a new future for myself and my children. With that resolve in mind, I decided it was time to return home. I packed up my things and left the cabin, feeling a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. As I drove back, I thought about what I would say to Denise, how I would approach the conversation we needed to have. When I finally arrived home, it was late in the evening. The house was dark, and I could see that Denise had left a light on for me in the living room. I took a deep breath before stepping inside, mentally preparing myself for the conversation ahead. Denise was sitting on the couch waiting for me. She looked up as I entered, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. I sat down beside her, taking her hand in mine. "We need to talk, Denise," I said softly, my voice calm but firm. "I spent these last few days thinking about everything, about us, about our family, and I've come to a decision." Denise's grip tightened on my hand and she nodded, bracing herself for what was to come. "I can't go back to the way things were," I continued. "The trust between us has been broken, and I don't know if we can ever fully repair it. But I also don't want to throw away everything we've built together. I still love you, Denise, and I want to try to make this work. But we need to do it together honestly, and with a lot of hard work." Tears welled up in Denise's eyes as she listened to my words, and she nodded again, her voice choked with emotion. "I want that too. I want us to work through this, to find a way back to each other. I'll do whatever it takes." I squeezed her hand gently, feeling a glimmer of hope in my heart. "We'll take it one step at a time," I said. "It won't be easy, but if we're both committed to this, I believe we can make it through." We sat together in silence for a long moment, the weight of the past few weeks hanging heavy between us. But for the first time in what felt like forever, there was also a sense of hope, a possibility of healing and rebuilding what had been broken. As the night wore on, we talked about our plans for the future, about how we would rebuild our trust, about the changes we needed to make in our relationship. It was a long and difficult conversation, but it was also the first step toward a new beginning. In the days and weeks that followed, Denise and I worked hard to repair our relationship. We attended counseling sessions together, learning how to communicate more openly and honestly. We spent more time as a family, focusing on our children and creating new memories together. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments of doubt, of anger and sadness. But slowly, we began to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. We learned to forgive each other, to let go of the past and focus on the future. And through it all, I realized that while our marriage would never be the same as it once was, it could still be strong, still be a source of love and support for both of us. We had been through the worst, and we had come out the other side, stronger and more resilient. As I looked back on those dark days, I knew that the journey had been worth it. I had faced my fears, had confronted the truth, and had found a way to move forward. And in the end, I had rediscovered the love that had brought us together in the first place, a love that was now tempered by experience, by the trials we had endured, and by the commitment we had made to each other. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but I was ready to face them, knowing that Denise and I were in it together, stronger than ever before. "I'm sorry," she said, nodding. "I'll go to my mom's to talk to the kids. I hope we can work this out peacefully. I'm willing to be fair about support if you are about the kids' time with me." "I'm glad you're not leaving for good. Of course I'll be fair." I hoped she meant it. I didn't talk directly to my mom at first. I was still pretty upset with her and wasn't sure how to handle that. But I knew talking to my kids was more important. My mom was in the room when I spoke to the kids, so she heard that Denise and I were separating, but she wisely kept quiet. The kids were upset, but they seemed to expect it. I explained that I would still live close by and see them often, which helped them accept it a bit more. I hoped Denise would keep her promise. I always thought she was a great mom, so I was optimistic she wouldn't use the kids against me. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment not too far from the house and reached out to my boss about returning to work. He was happy to have me back, as were the managers who had taken over while I was gone. They had brought in someone temporary, but he needed plenty of support. Denise and I worked with a lawyer friend for the divorce, and it went through without any big problems. I was surprised, but Denise seemed to handle the results of her choices better than I thought she would. There were some discussions, but nothing too complicated to settle. You might think I ran straight to Melody as soon as my divorce was official, but that's not true. It wasn't that I didn't want to, but I had just ended a long marriage. I didn't think it would be fair to jump into a new relationship right away. I wanted to make sure I wasn't just seeking comfort. I took a full month to think things over. The divorce took about 90 days to finish, starting from when I told Denise my decision. During that month, I focused on my work and thought about moving forward without Melody. I believed that rushing into a new relationship wouldn't be respectful to what we had, but I missed her, and I decided not to let timing control my feelings. The right person doesn't always show up when you expect. So on that Friday, I left work, put on my biker gear, and rode down the highway to the Dirty Dog. I parked and smiled when I saw Paul's bike. I noticed that there were no cars belonging to Melody or Rhonda, but I tried not to read too much into it. When I walked in, I spotted Paul at his usual table. I thought he would be glad to see me, and he was at first, but then he looked downcast. That worried me. As I approached him, he stayed seated and waited for me to come to the table. I reached out my hand and we shook. "Hey, Paul. Good to see you." "You too, Henry. Have a seat." "Duke, one for Henry on me." "Thanks, Paul. Is something wrong? Are you here to see Mel?" "Yep. I wanted to wait until my divorce was done, but here I am." "Is she coming by later?" "Well, Henry, I don't really know how to say this, but she's not here." "What do you mean, not here?" "She left town about 10 days after you did. She said it was too hard to be here and go back to the empty house without you. Rhonda and I are living in her house now. She didn't want to sell it, but she didn't want to stay there anymore." "Where did she go? Do you know where she is?" "The last I heard, she moved to West Virginia. She's working as a traveling nurse, so she doesn't stay in one place for long." "Well, if that's where she is, then that's where I'll go. Do you have an address?" "She doesn't give me an address. She just emails me to let me know where she is and that she's okay. The only phone she has is from her job, and she won't share the number." All the excitement I had during the ride faded away. I sank into my chair, wishing I could just leave. Everyone here was friendly, but I really wanted to see Melody, not sit in a dusty bar. I think Paul noticed my mood. "Come on, city boy, let's play a game of pool." I followed him to the pool table, even though I wasn't really feeling it. Paul let me break, but I didn't do very well. We exchanged a few misses as we played. I thought Paul was going easy on me because he usually played better, but I appreciated his kindness, so I didn't say anything. It was during our second game when the door opened, and I was surprised to see Melody walk in. I didn't recognize her right away since I wasn't expecting her. Once my mind caught up, I noticed her looking around until she spotted me. I glanced at Paul, hoping he would explain. He just smiled. "I made it all up," he said. I would talk to him later. When I turned back, Melody was approaching me. I got ready for her to say something. "I saw your bike outside," she said cheerfully. "I knew you'd be back." We greeted each other warmly, and it was clear our bond was still strong. "If you two want to head home early," I heard Rhonda say. "I doubt they can wait that long," Paul replied. We didn't need to say more. We walked down the dim hallway toward the restrooms and office. I turned to close the door behind us, feeling a sense of urgency. "I missed you," she said with a smile, and I felt just as strongly. The mood in the room was filled with excitement, and our glances told each other how eager we were to catch up after being apart for a while. That was something special. We cleaned up quickly, grabbing paper towels and wipes to tidy the desk and floor. Melody noticed my expression and spoke up. "Yeah, Duke's office is used for private chats sometimes, and no, this isn't my first time here. But I promise, it's only you from now on. Don't worry about anything from before we met. We're not perfect," I replied. We both straightened our clothes and ensured we looked decent. Even if people suspected something, there was no need to make it obvious. As we rejoined Paul and Rhonda, their looks told us there would be no secrets. "That sounded like fun," Rhonda said when we sat down. "You heard us?" I asked, surprised. "Of course. Melody can be quite loud. Honestly, it made me a bit flustered," Rhonda admitted. Melody turned a little red, but she seemed to take it in stride. I just smiled. Denise had never liked showing affection in public, and I was enjoying this new attention. As the evening went on, I noticed some knowing looks between Rhonda and Melody. They seemed to have a secret, but they communicated silently, so I was left guessing. I finally found out as the night came to a close. The place was almost empty, but my return kept the four of us around for a late-night chat. We were just sitting at a table talking while Duke cleaned up for the night. Rhonda suddenly stood up, and at that moment, Melody leaned close and whispered in my ear, "Just so you know, I'm totally okay with what's about to happen. What are you talking about?" Before I could finish my question, Rhonda sat down next to me. I looked at her for a moment, then turned back to Melody, who smiled at Paul by the pool tables. They both seemed amused. I looked back at Rhonda. "When you left, she was really upset, but I told her you'd come back. And I told her my plan when you returned, with both her and Paul's agreement, of course." Rhonda smiled at me kindly. We shared a brief moment, aware of how unusual this was for us, but also connected by trust and understanding. "She's a wonderful person, Henry. Never forget that," Rhonda said. "I know," I replied. We continued to enjoy our evening together, appreciating the unique bond we shared. Epilogue. After spending several hours resting and talking, Melody and I discussed our relationship. The truth was, even though we had only known each other for a week, it was still just a week. I was careful about making any big changes. We started with our jobs. Her hospital was a little closer to my area, about 10 minutes, than her house was, so the drive to my office was about 90 minutes. We also talked about long-term options. Many hospitals in my city could hire her since it was a large area, but my job was fixed. So we decided to rent a small 3-bedroom house that was halfway between us. This meant we both had a bit of a commute for now, but we thought 6 months would give us time to figure things out. Paul and Rhonda moved into Melody's house, which was a plan they had made before I arrived in the picture if Melody wanted to make a change. The extra bedrooms in our rental house were meant for my kids to visit, although that was a meeting I wasn't looking forward to. Nate knew what was happening, and Gracie would probably understand, but Danny was too young to really get it. Still, living with another woman so soon after divorcing their mom would likely bring up feelings they couldn't avoid. I had an unexpected supporter in this change, Denise. She told me she felt sad and disappointed by my choice, but wanted us to be friends for the kids' sake. She helped us stay united in front of them. At first, she wasn't too fond of Melody, but over time, they built a friendship. Melody turned out to be a kind stepmother, and over the years, she became very close with the kids, earning the nickname Mama Mel. Eventually, we got closer to the city, and Melody started working at a nearby hospital. She had to change her schedule a bit, picking up some evening and weekend shifts, but she was ready for it. Over time, Melody and Denise became really good friends. It was normal for me to come home and find them both outside, enjoying each other's company. It felt a bit strange, but nice. I didn't mind at all. I was okay with spending time with Denise. And even though I couldn't be married to her anymore after everything that happened, I didn't think she meant any harm. I just felt she made some bad choices. When she married her new husband, a nice guy named Alvin, Melody and I were there to support them. Paul and Rhonda also visited us often, even when Rhonda was expecting their baby. Later, they moved closer to us, too. Things with my mother are still a bit complicated. On one hand, I wish she had told me about my condition because knowing that could have saved me a lot of heartache. She also helped make plans for the future without being honest. But on the other hand, I don't believe she meant to hurt me, just like I don't think Denise did. They took a chance, and it didn't turn out well. We're not back to how things were, but we are slowly trying to rebuild our relationship. The same goes for my cousin, Gabe. We used to be as close as brothers, but this situation changed that. I can go to family gatherings without feeling angry, but we don't hang out alone anymore, which I miss. I do feel he should have handled things better. He and his wife, Chelsea, are doing okay. I understand how tough her position was, and I have forgiven her because I know that saying anything might have put her marriage at risk. In the end, things worked out after all. Maybe not perfectly, but definitely better than I ever thought they would after that phone call that changed everything for me. Hey, listeners! If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.